What's up, 49er fans? I am joined by a guest. We're going to be talking Odell Beckham, this Justin Fields, Trey Lance debate that has popped up, and of course, the Los Angeles Chargers. Tapping with the channel. Let's get it. Welcome, everybody. Let's go, Niners. My name is Jason Aponte. I am Jason Aponte. That guy next to me, that is Akash Anavarathan of Niners Nation. It's the Niners Nation hookup. Akash, what's up, bro? Thank you for joining me today.
What's up, Jason? Appreciate you for having me. And I think I texted you this before, but sick intro, man.
Oh, appreciate that, man. Yeah, and shout out to 49X35 Biamici. He's the one who hooked me up. So yeah, but hey, a lot of stuff was going on in the bye week. First of all, how was your bye week, Akash? Did you just relax, completely unplug? Because I'll be honest with you, man. I just laid on the couch and laughed at other teams' misery and said, well, not me.
You know who the happiest person was that the 49ers were on a bye? Was my girlfriend, because she was like, man, you have a free Sunday, no Niners. We can go do something on a Sunday for a change. So she was the one that was the most thrilled. So we got to get out a little bit this weekend. It's kind of nice. I actually didn't watch much football. It's kind of nice to unwind a little bit. Like last year, the bye was super early in the season, so it wasn't as didn't feel as impactful. Whereas this season, it was right kind of in the middle. It's kind of nice to have just 4 or 5 days off from Twitter and writing and all that stuff. And that's kind of exciting to get back into the grind of things. But yeah, nothing much, just hanging around.
For sure. Second half run for the 49ers, second half run for us content creators. You guys know the deal while you're here. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. Make sure you follow Akash on Twitter, man. He's got 27,000 followers, man. That's a big deal, man. But no bye week would be complete without a little bit of, I guess, gossip, or 49ers news somehow. So seems like this Odell Beckham thing has been trying to happen for years, right? If you guys remember, I believe it was 2018 when the Giants came to Santa Clara. Yeah. Sounded like he said something up to the effect of "Come get me." Then 2019, the Browns tossed to Jimmy Garoppolo, hand over his mouth. A lot of people speculated all that stuff. Now Jay Glazer, who doesn't miss, by the way. This is the only reason that I'm really willing to discuss this, because Jay Glazer is not pulling this from nowhere, right? That the 49ers will be at least in the bidding war for Odell Beckham. Akash, your initial thoughts on that before we get into the ramifications and how he would actually fit with this team.
It makes sense, right? The 49ers basically take a look at any player that comes available, especially under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. They will at least make a phone call. They'll sniff around. They'll see what the price is, whether that's been Jalen Ramsey, Jamal Adams, Minkah Fitzpatrick, you name it. They've probably made a call on these type players.
What's it called? Due diligence season?
Due diligence. Yeah. I feel like 49ers Twitter hates that, but it's true. They do that. And that's what good front offices do. And it doesn't necessarily always pan out, right? They usually set a price and based off of what they feel most comfortable with. And if they're able to acquire that player, like Christian McCaffrey, for example, they go ahead and make the move. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And in the case of Odell Beckham Jr., it's interesting because Kyle Shanahan, clearly a fan of OBJ, he said, I feel like a lot of positive things about a receiver for once, which isn't very common.
It'd be nice if he said it about
his own receivers. Yeah, no, I agree. And then, Jimmy Garoppolo, Odell Beckham Jr., right? The interaction you mentioned, which I think was a couple years ago after that Browns Monday Night Football game. Mm-hmm. And you just feel like OBJ, obviously the moment with Debo after the NFC title game last year, after the Rams beat the 49ers. So clearly it feels like he's got a relationship with a lot of the players on the team. And the 49ers have sniffed around an OBJ before. So it all makes sense. Now, the things we just don't know are, what is Odell Beckham Jr. looking for, right, in terms of a contract, and what the Niners are willing to pay him. And that's where this gets kind of complicated.
Right. Like if Odell's looking for an audition, then he can take a prorated 1-year deal and go ahead and prove his worth and prove that he's all the way back from the ACL and then retest the market next year. That would kind of be smart. But there has been whispers that Odell's not interested in that. Like right now he's 30, right? So 30 for running backs means you're untouchable. That doesn't mean that for wide receivers. But I understand Odell saying, I want to sign for multi-years. Also, I understand Odell saying, I want to play for a contender because he got his ring last year, and who doesn't want to try to revisit that? Now, the thing is, John Lynch kind of came out and tried to like stomp out the whole idea, like how many footballs are we going to play with? There are a lot of mouths to feed, right? Like there are. But,
completely agree.
Right. But don't you think that it's kind of in the 49ers' favor to either, one, drive up the price on Odell Beckham because of the competing teams that they'll probably likely see in the playoffs, or two, even try to keep him away from those teams? I want to give you the real death scenario, because if he goes to the Rams, who cares? He can't play offensive line. That's not going to help him. If he goes to the Packers, who cares? Aaron Rodgers is not playing well. That team is in a bad spot. But if he goes to the Dallas Cowboys and you run into the Dallas Cowboys and now you have to cover CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and Odell Beckham, that could potentially be a problem when you pair him with that defense. So what do you think about the idea of the 49ers, if not trying to keep him away, at least just driving up the price for competing teams?
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people have asked, like, do you think they're going to land OBJ? Do you think he's going to come to the 49ers? And my honest response is probably not, right? And just because of the price and what the other teams would be willing to pay. And you take a look at, a team like the Dallas Cowboys, right? They've got CeeDee Lamb, and then it's kind of questionable after that. You look at the Buffalo Bills, it's like Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and then it's kind of questionable. And so I feel like those teams would be more desperate to pay for a player like OBJ compared to the 49ers, where it feels like they made their splash move with Christian McCaffrey, and they feel content with that. So I could certainly see them being in the market to just drive up the price for, keeping him out of the NFC, for instance, or something to that effect. Definitely an interesting angle. And I feel like that's more why they're in the mix than to actually, come away with him.
Yeah. If he wants to go to the AFC, fine. You go to the Bills, I don't like it. You go to the Chiefs, I hate it. But that's a game that if you're fortunate enough to be in February, we'll deal with that when we get there. So but having him in the way, and a lot of 49er fans, unfortunately, and I don't want to, call people out. Well, we've got Juwan Jennings, and come on, guys. Like, I like Juwan Jennings. I like what he brings, but don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Like, Odell Beckham would clearly be an upgrade over Juwan Jennings, unfortunately. I think a lot of people's concern, Akash, is Odell Beckham coming into the 49ers fold if it does happen, which I don't believe either. I wanted to make sure I get that out there. I don't believe either. That would actually take away from Brandon Ayuk, and I don't like that at all because he has been coming into his own.
Absolutely. And the 49ers generally shy away from the 3 wide receiver looks, right? They've been heavier 21 personnel, which is 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 receiver, or now with the addition of McCaffrey, I could see them going like 31 personnel, right? Using Elijah Mitchell, Christian McCaffrey, and Kyle Juszczyk in certain formations. I feel like they're shying away from the 3 wide receiver looks. So yeah, putting Odell Beckham Jr. on the field would probably take away snaps from a Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. In a vacuum, you want as many good players as possible on your team. So yes, in a vacuum, of course, I would take Odell Beckham Jr. over Juwan Jennings. But like you mentioned, now how does the chemistry work in the wide receiver room? Now you've got 3 guys that are going to be looking for targets. And, if Odell Beckham Jr. is here on a 1-year deal, is he worried more about his numbers because now he's trying to set himself for another contract? Like, I feel like there's a lot of complications here. And so in a vacuum, yeah, it sounds great, but I feel like it's a little bit more complicated to make all the pieces work. Whereas if you're Kyle Shanahan, I feel like you just take what you have, try to make that work, and make sure they stay healthy for this stretch run.
The only other thing that I would say would be a positive to get Odell Beckham is this team is 1 wide receiver injury away from having to play Ray McCloud a ton, having to play Juwan Jennings a lot. Like, now, down the stretch, God forbid something happens to Deebo. God forbid something happens to Brandon Ayuk. Odell Beckham is not a bad replacement. But again, making a move for a player like that who commands targets, deserves targets because he's a great separator, just to cover yourself for injuries doesn't feel like the right move. So, we're going to watch this unfold. I think it's going to be this entire week while we wait for him to be cleared. I will state it one more time. I do not believe that the 49ers are going to land him, but I will tell you this. I did not believe that they would trade for Christian McCaffrey.
I didn't either.
So maybe there's something up their sleeve, and maybe they're thinking, let's keep guys away, and we have a master plan. Fine, that's cool. Akash, let's pivot real quick. Last draft, well, two drafts ago, when the 49ers traded up to 3, everybody was consumed with who the 49ers would take at 3. I don't think it's any shock for anybody to hear that Akash and myself were firmly in the Justin Fields at 3 camp. I can tell you that while I did want them to draft Justin Fields at 3, I was completely fine with Trey Lance being the pick at 3. I think we all can agree. If we disagreed on that, we all agreed on one thing. We didn't want Matt Jones at 3. And I think everybody, one way or another, was satisfied. But here's the thing. Justin Fields, the last few weeks, has really turned it up. In terms of his development, you're starting to see the flashes. You're starting to see the growth and development. So now a debate has largely, spread like wildfire on Twitter. It's turned into people on YouTube shows talking about it just like us. And the 49ers not drafting the right quarterback. Akash, I'll let you start, even though we're both Justin Fields enthusiasts. And I want to say this. I am ecstatic for the kid. I am super excited to watch him continue to grow, man. It has been super fun to watch him play, man. I am happy for him, and I will always root for that kid, provided he's not playing the 49ers. But Akash, did the 49ers draft the wrong guy? What do you think?
I don't know. I think it's too soon to tell, partially because Trey Lance has only played, 4 games, 3.5 games, something like that. So he doesn't have the body of work that a Justin Fields has for us to compare. Now, if both of them had played the same amount of time, if Trey Lance had started mid-season last year and was healthy this year and, hadn't shown the improvement that Justin Fields has shown, then we could probably sit up here and say, okay, man, did the 49ers draft, the wrong quarterback? Should they have taken Justin Fields over Trey Lance? Does Kyle Shanahan not know how to evaluate quarterbacks, et cetera, et cetera? We could sit up here and have that argument. But right now it's hard because we don't know what Trey Lance is. And I think that's the most frustrating part of this for fans, probably the coaching staff, for us, right, is that we just don't know what Trey Lance is. It'll be year 3 by the time, he steps on the field next year, coming off of a major ankle injury. And who knows what he's going to look like post-injury. And so, his career trajectory completely changed after that injury. So we're about to see how he responds. But, back to Justin Fields, this is kind of what we expected from him when we thought he should have been the pick at 3, right?
He's flashing all the traits that we love.
Yeah, it feels like the Bears' offense completely changed when they started to scheme design runs for Justin Fields. I mean, you've got a 4-3 athlete. He's legitimately, at quarterback, probably one of the best athletes, right? Right up there with Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. He just has the top-end speed. He's been playing against other top athletes in college, right? At Ohio State, at Georgia. So his instincts when he runs the ball is just so much further than where Trey Lance was when he was running the ball. He's just a much more natural runner, avoided big hits, was able to get away from defenders. And that's probably an area of concern for Trey Lance, right? Just what his mobility, his running ability looks like when he comes back. But it's something that Justin Fields just naturally had coming out of college. And somehow the Bears just didn't utilize it up until 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it's just paid off, for their offense. And it just looks like that running threat has now opened up the pass game for them. He just seems to be processing things faster, right? I think his sack rates have gone down a little bit over the last month. His average time to throw has also gone down. So he's just seeing the field a little bit better, and he's just been improved. And that's what you'd look for from a young quarterback, right? Improvement in year 2, showing some potential. It's what we were hoping for from Trey Lance this season. We knew he was going to go through some struggles early in the year, but could he just show some improvement, right? By mid-time, by the bye week, if he was healthy, was he just going to take some steps where he'd be like, okay, we got something to build off of? And unfortunately, we don't have that opportunity this season because he got hurt. It is what it is, but you can see what Kyle Shanahan was thinking when he decided to be like, okay, let's run him early, and then the pass game will just come off of it as he starts to get more comfortable. And maybe they ran him too much. Unfortunately, he got hurt, and we never got to see it. But you could see what he was thinking and how he wanted to utilize Trey Lance is basically how the Bears are using Justin Fields now.
Here's the thing, Akash. There's no victory lap to be taken because of these last few weeks with Justin Fields. right? If you're a Justin Fields guy like we were, there's no victory lap in that. The victory lap comes in that, hold on to your hats, people, quarterbacks actually can develop with reps. Shocking. Unbelievable. And I think that's why we bang the drum so hard for Trey Lance to kick off his development early on, because you are absolutely right. We are going into year 3. And unfortunately, and I hate this, we are going to have the same discussions that we had last offseason, this past offseason, with Trey Lance as the starter. We don't know. Now, does that mean that he can't be? I don't know. And I don't think that they got the wrong quarterback. Let me explain. Just because I wanted Justin Fields at 3 doesn't make it the pick, because who gives a shit what I think, right, Akash? Who gives a shit what we think, right?
100%. Unless you're here listening.
If Kyle Shanahan and that organization and that room believed in Trey Lance, then it was the right pick. Now, the question becomes less of that and can Kyle bring out the best parts of Trey Lance? And I think that's the part that has so many 49er fans even asking this question. Justin Fields was thrown into the fire pretty early, right? And you saw the struggles. Would 49er fans be patient with those sort of struggles early on with Trey Lance, right? Like, it's different situations. Here's the other thing. If the 49ers took Justin Fields, they would not start him right away. They wouldn't have started him right away.
He wouldn't have beat out Jimmy Garoppolo last year.
No. So they wouldn't have started Justin Fields. This discussion now is largely based on 2 situations that are completely different. The only victory lap that anyone can take about Justin Fields and Trey Lance is that reps matter. Reps help development. That's the only victory lap you can take at this point. You cannot tell me that what you've watched these last few weeks with Justin Fields makes you feel like he is this over that. And trust me, I wanted Justin Fields. Akash wanted Justin Fields. Like, I want to make sure that we reiterate that. But at the same time, making grand sweeping statements when you haven't seen the kid and his circumstances are different and Justin Fields' circumstances are different, it feels premature. We had kind of walked into this Trey Lance thing and this whole draft class, right? Every one of them. I had always preached, you are not going to be able to tell what's going on with these guys within a year, 2 years. It'll probably take 3 years, 4 years before you really figure out who guys are. Because if you would have wrote the book on Justin Fields when he first started, you probably would have closed that book already. And now look. And now you're seeing the flashes. You're seeing the growth. You're seeing development. So there's no victory lap to be taken about Justin Fields right now. The only victory lap that needs to be taken is that quarterbacks with reps, with game reps, can develop. And you're watching it. And that's what I think is the most frustrating for 49ers fans. I don't blame you 49er fans that say, I'm still all in with the kid. I'm all in with the kid too. We all are, right? We all believe that, right? But you still are projecting what you think can happen because there's not enough sample size. There just isn't.
Oh, no.
Right now, what we should be doing with Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Davis Mills, who needs to be thrown, is gathering information still. You still should be gathering information at this point. You still can't tell me that with everything that you watch from all of these guys that you know exactly what they will be, right? Yeah. Because so many people put up, oh, well, Mac's the best. Yeah? Mac's been playing like shit this year, right? Like, it looks bad, right?
It looks bad.
Right? Davis Mills was the number 2 quarterback. Nobody saw that coming, right? Last year, he was very good when he played. Yeah. Zach Wilson's getting reps. You're seeing the ebbs and flows of his development. Trevor Lawrence looks a little bit better. You're seeing his development. So there's no victory lap to be taken about Justin Fields. I'm going to say this one more time. No victory lap that needs to be taken about Justin Fields and his development. The victory lap that you should be taking is that quarterbacks with reps develop and they get better. And that's what you should take away from all this.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right when you say that. And I would add the only difference between Trey Lance and those other quarterbacks is their situation. And pre-draft, I feel like a lot of people said the Niners were the best pre-draft situation situation for a young quarterback because of their supporting cast, because of their coach, because of the organizational stability, all that stuff. I would argue while that's true, on the flip side, Justin Fields has played for a horrible roster, basically first-year coach and GM. Doesn't matter if they win or lose on Sundays, right? He's just being thrown out there. He's solely focus on his
And
development
49er
just getting
fans
better.
wouldn't be able to put the 49er fans wouldn't be able to put up with that though either. Like, oh, it doesn't matter whether they win or lose, it's time to develop. So like, I'm sorry, Akash, keep going.
No, go ahead. And I don't even think it's just the fans. Hell, I think players in that 49ers locker room, right? Veterans that are like, man, we got a Super Bowl roster right now. We're ready to win. And now we got to watch this guy develop. They feel that way. And so I think these combating timelines where you've got a win now roster and you've got a quarterback that needs some development was always going to be hard to manage. And that's why you saw Kyle Shanahan kind of play it the way he thought would be best, right? Which is just run Trey Lance, give him certain opportunities to throw, but not really put him in heavy drop back passing situations and just see what happens. And you can tell the offense has just responded a lot better since Jimmy Garoppolo has taken over. And that's no shot at Trey Lance or anything. It's just kind of how the roster feels. So I get why the fans would feel that way too, right? Is why they would be impatient because they're like, damn, we've got a good team. Let's win now. And I know Mike Silver had that stuff on players inside the locker room. So it's just a different situation. Whereas Justin Fields, he's had awful games, but it doesn't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things because he's just using those as reps to get better and better. And eventually that'll probably, be better for Chicago because when they start to field a better roster around him, no pun intended, he would have gained valuable experience. And now heading into year 3, he'll hopefully just hit the ground running. Whereas Trey Lance, it feels like he'll be a rookie again.
Yeah. 21 minutes in. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, joined by Akash from Niners Nation. I guess, are we coworkers? Is that what it is?
Coworkers, baby.
Oh, coworkers. Oh, look at that, man. I made it. I finally made it to be able to do that. But yeah, I think, to put a bow on this, I am proud of Justin Fields, but also do not confuse situations and circumstances to take a victory lap at this point. I just think that wouldn't be smart. I don't think that that's really the right way to look at this. The only victory lap that should be taken is, quarterbacks develop when they get reps and everything as well too. Akash, real quick. The Los Angeles Chargers are here. It's the third team that plays in SoFi because there's, 2 other teams that cohabitated, with them. You saw a 49er fan cleaning off his house. Pretty funny, right? Like that's a Rams joke. It's just funny to kind of dance on the Rams grave because they're
It is.
Whoa, we got to sign Odell Beckham. Yeah, he don't play offensive line, little bro. You guys are in trouble. But the Chargers are here, right? And the first thing I want to start with, Akash, when the NFL schedule comes out and you're looking through the schedule and you're like, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. You probably looked at this Chargers game like, man, the Chargers are going to be tough. This might not be a win. It's funny how week to week when teams get injured, circumstances change, and, Brandon Staley, and for as much as they crap on Brandon Staley, they're still 5-3, and they have all those injuries.
That's true.
But what do the 49ers need to do to beat the Chargers? And I know exactly where you're going with it because it's right there. Like it's so funny that the Chargers have this fatal flaw that for years they have not addressed in one way or another. I don't know if it's a defensive scheme thing. I don't know if it's a personnel thing. I don't know if they just have injuries, but it's the same thing over and over. And the 49ers have a chance to exploit this. Akash, what would that be?
Absolutely. And you're right. When I looked at the schedule, when it came out back in April, and we all do this, I was like, oh, this Chargers game's going to be tough. It's Sunday Night Football. I get it's at Levi's, but you're like Justin Herbert. And you look at their team, they're like Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson, Derwin James. They had an improved offensive line. Obviously had Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. And now you're like, well.
And Slater's out too, right?
Yeah. No, Rashawn Slater. He's out for the season. They lost one of their key interior defenders, Austin Johnson, who was one of their run stoppers. He's out for the season. Obviously, no J.C. Jackson, no Mike Williams, maybe Keenan Allen. He's day-to-day, so we'll see.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I mean, Keenan coming out of the bye with a setback on a hamstring injury and telling everybody, I'm not playing until I'm 100%, I don't think he's playing in this game.
No, completely agree. And Joey Bosa also not playing. And, as the further you get into the season, the more data you get on opponents. So it's easier to find like what they're weak at, right? I feel like we all do this. We get to like Tuesday, Wednesday, midweek, and we're like, okay, all right, let's dig through some numbers. Let's see where the opponent is weak, right? Defensively, offensively, whatever. The one area to attack the Chargers defense against the run. in the last 6 weeks, I think they've given up 3 200-yard rushing games. I think Kenneth Walker ran for like $150 a couple weeks ago on them.
It was very good.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Falcons had 200 yards rushing. The Falcons have a really good rushing attack, but still 200 yards on the ground in a game that the Falcons ended up losing. I mean, I know we talk about Brandon Staley, and I make fun of him. I know a bunch of people do. I feel like a lot of people make fun of him for his like fourth down decision-making, which whatever. I make fun of him because his defense sucks. He's like a defensive-minded guy.
He's a defensive guy.
Yeah. He's got Justin Herbert. Like, if their defense is just somewhat competent, they're probably going to be a really good team. And whatever, they're 5-3. Their record is what it is. But their run defense is historically bad. I think they're giving up like 5.7 yards per carry to opponents this season, which is the second worst in NFL history over the last like 20 some odd years. So it's historically bad. You know, you look at any of the advanced metrics, EPA per play, DVOA, success rate, they're in the bottom 3. And so I joked that when Kyle Shanahan installs the game plan on Wednesday, he's going to be like 30 plus runs this week, 30 plus runs. They're going to hammer the hell out of Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. I think it's one of those games where the 49ers, who have been struggling to run the ball consistently, will try to find their way. And I think it's just going to be a big game on the ground. And their linebacker, Drew Tranquil, I think he has 8 missed tackles on the season, which is, I think, tops. Yeah.
Kyle's looking at him right now like you. Like, the water boy, like when he's like, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Kyle found him, and that's going to be the guy.
I think he wears like 48 or 49.
49?
So yeah. I mean, he's going to get picked on this week, I think. And at the same time, they're 31st in DVOA to opposing running backs in the pass game. So I'd expect Christian McCaffrey to have a big game in the pass game. I think they give up like 6 catches for about 30 yards a game to opposing running backs. I'd imagine McCaffrey just runs all over them, also catches a couple balls. I think it's a big game on the ground. I think it's one of those games where, you know, you think back to Sunday Night Football a couple years ago, Green Bay Packers, 49ers, 2019, where I think the Niners won like 37-8, where it's just the defense takes over. They run the shit out of the ball. Jimmy Garoppolo, you know, does his thing. I think it has the makings of one of those games.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to, you know, expound on some of those stats, the Chargers rank 29th in the NFL in rushing yards allowed per game at 145.5 and rank 32nd in rushing yards per play with 5.71. Not great, Bob. And again, I think it's really funny to me that this has been their flaw. This has been how you beat the Chargers. And schematically, personnel-wise, I don't know how they can figure this out, or are they addressing it? Look, I don't know. I watch the Chargers passingly and everything as well. You know, you get nervous because Herbert's there and Austin Eckler's a baller. But honestly, at this point, the 49ers should win this game. And realistically, we go through the schedule and we're like, you know, the more and more, we're like, realistically, they should win this game. Should win. But this is the NFL, right? You don't want to count your chickens and all those things. But right now, this feels like a get-right game for the 49ers on the ground. And I want to push back a little bit on something that you said about struggling to run the ball. I don't think they've been struggling, but they just haven't stuck to it more than anything. And I think some of that has to do with game script. Some of that has to do with, hey, look, you know me, big Kyle guy. Some of that, sometimes Kyle gets away from that. Like, I think they've done what they could, you know, with what they have. And also, the last 2 years, you know, nothing against Elijah Mitchell, this running game hasn't seen anyone as dynamic as Raheem Mostert in it. And now you've got it with Christian McCaffrey, who not only has the same, not the same juice, because nobody has the juice like Mostert does. Like, that's different. That's true. But his patience and his vision. He's so
skinny
good
through the hole.
Right. And he knows exactly where to go with it. So, yeah, this is going to be a big on-the-ground game. Yeah, the 49ers right now are a team that everyone's worried about. And here's why. Feels like they got their mojo back against the Rams. Whenever you need a get-right game, make sure you play the Rams. Ask the Tampa Bay Bucks, right? You know, I'm not going to stop taking shots at the Rams. I'm not. But they're also getting reinforcements back. Deebo Samuel's going to play in this game. Kyle Juszczyk's going to play in this game. Azeez Al-Shaair looks like he's going to play in this game. Jason Verrett might make his first start in this game. You're not talking about guys that are just
they're starters.
They're rotational guys. Yeah. You're talking about a team that right now 4-4 going into the bye are getting healthy at a time where Maybe Jimmy Ward goes back to free safety and doesn't have to play nickel anymore. You can kick Demo back in there, and now you have Verrett, and Verrett doesn't have to. So for everybody with the injury concerns with Verrett doesn't have to be healthy for 16 games anymore. He got to be healthy for 8 in the playoff run now at this point. That's it. So this team now is the team that everybody is starting to look at. Like, you turn on the national news, the Philadelphia Eagles are clearly the class of the NFC, but everybody's talking about, hey, if the 49ers get in there and they're healthy, they're the team that can take them out. I don't think anybody really believes in the Minnesota Vikings at this point. I don't think we know what the Dallas Cowboys are at this point right now because Dak hasn't been healthy fully. That defense is legit, though. The Dallas Cowboys, and I know you guys don't want to hear me say this, they worry me. They worry me a lot. The only thing that's kind of keeping me warm and fuzzy is that Mike McCarthy's still their coach, and he'll find a way to blow it one way or another, whether that's through play calling, whether that's through time management, whatever it is. It's still going to end up being that. But yeah, the 49ers right now, when you look at their schedule, the Arizona Cardinals not playing well, they're cooked, right? Like they're out of this. Like I applaud them for changing the narrative of folding at the end of the year by folding early in the year. I applaud them for that. Like I love that for the Arizona Cardinals. Get it out of the way early. Like, don't give your fan base hope and fold down the stretch. Just fold early on, and then that's fine. Everybody's cool with that. The Rams are cooked. They're out. Like, that's done. So it's a 2-team race now. So real quick, before, guys, 30 minutes in, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Make sure you follow Akash. I mean, I'm sure you probably are. Let's open it up for some questions. You guys want to throw them in. I'm not going to keep Akash for too long, but I do want to pivot to the fact that I was the one telling 49er fans on my channel, the Seattle Seahawks are real. The Seattle Seahawks are real. And I hate to say it, but time is a flat circle. And now the biggest game on the 49ers schedule remaining is Thursday Night Football in Seattle. How on earth does this continue to happen? Well, how does it happen? The Seattle Seahawks did an amazing an amazing job in this draft. 2 starting tackles, a stud cornerback, Tariq Woolen. Kobe Bryant has been playing very well for them. Kenneth Walker's a ball. They destroyed this draft. And this is the worst case. This is and Geno, obviously, clearly Geno. This is the worst case scenario right here. This is the worst case scenario. Thursday Night Football against Seattle is going to be loud. It's going to be intense. That's going to be the same kind of thing that the 49ers, just when we thought we were ready to just walk into Seattle and just get rid of it. Turns out the problem really was Russell Wilson. Real quick, let's get to this. Jared Guile, thank you for the donation, bro. Are you worried about DT with Kinlaw and Eric injuries? We'll go to that, and then we'll go to Seattle.
Yeah, let me take that. I am for sure worried about their defensive tackle depth. Kyle Shanahan hit on this a couple weeks ago, right? They're having to rely on Hassan Ridgeway and some other rotational guys. Kevin Givens, who I'm a big fan of. Those guys are your starters. And so your depth just naturally gets thin when you're missing your 2 starting D tackles. And I tweeted this out earlier, but basically their advanced metrics with and without Eric Armstead, basically they're a top 5 defense with Eric Armstead, and they've been a defense in the 20s without him. And they really miss him, especially against the run. He just provides stability, and he's a fringe all-pro, Pro Bowl level player. And when you don't have that type of guy in the middle for 4 or 5 weeks, it just puts a bigger burden on some of the other defensive linemen that you do have. And so hopefully they get him back soon. I saw he spoke to Jennifer Lee Chan, said he should be back soon. So
hairline
maybe
fracture.
Not this week. Hairline fracture, that's
and on top of the type of injury, when you hear plantar fasciitis, that hurts regardless, but he's a giant man. That really concerns me. That concerns me. And it's funny, Akash, not to, cut you off real quick, but just a lot of 49er fans were floating the idea, oh, well, look at how dominant this defense is. I don't think we need Eric Armstead. Guys, come on. His presence alone makes you run into another gap where it's probably filled with a 49er defender to tackle you. Like, don't let your feelings about money that you don't pay these players get in the way of what Eric Armstead did down the stretch for this team last year and how electric he was and how much he matters to this defense. For as much as the 49ers gave up in the run game, how much of that has to do with the fact that Eric Armstead wasn't in the lineup? And you posted something today on Twitter where you were talking about the advanced metrics. It's clear as day. When Eric Armstead's on the field, the 49ers defend the run better. When he's not, they struggle. And it's just, it is what it is. Like, at this point, it's indisputable. That's it.
Absolutely. And, at this point, you're just hoping to tread water while he's gone, right? You're not saying, okay, we're going to be this elite defense, this elite front that's going to stop the run. They're going to rush the passer. Where you're deficient. And so DeMeco Ryans, Fred Warner, they've had to be creative in order to slow down the run and find different ways to rush the passer. I know Jordan Elliott wrote about this a while ago, but they've been rushing the passer with 4 defensive ends on some of these third down situations.
Akash, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off because you were saying something.
I saw lobs all day.
Yeah, you were saying something that was very much informative and insightful as always. But JKBG is our resident guy who can he's the only guy who can get me out of my zone. Like, I'm right here, now I'm talking to him. But Akash, if Lobs All Day and Daniel Kelly were both hanging off a cliff and you had only the strength to say one, what sandwich would you make?
That's a good question. Sandwich. Ooh. I'm a big just classic PB&J guy, so I'd probably go that route. On both of those guys, I have them muted, so don't even see them. Don't interact with them. Don't even deal with it. I don't even see half the shit that they say. So, if they were hanging off the cliff, I'd be like, yeah, who are you guys? But,
it's funny that's where we go. Like, our comment section gets a little wild or whatever. If a Rams fan pops in here, I just let everybody else, cook.
Just go after the guy.
Yeah, you got it. I'm done. Akash, I'm trying to turn over a new leaf. I don't want to be as angry anymore. I don't want to be angry anymore. I don't want to be angry on Twitter. I don't want to be angry on YouTube anymore. I don't want to be angry. I don't. Life is good. Life is very good for me right now at this point. But all right. Having said all that, right? Seattle, they're real. They are real, man. They're real. Like, this isn't just a small sample size. They're real. To be able to land this many impact players in the draft, you were talking about the one thing that everybody was like, oh, well, who can that offensive line block? Well, they got 2 tackles. Oh, but the defense is missing. Well, Jamal Adams gets injured. Tariq Woolen's a baller. Kobe Bryant is punching the ball out. Oh, well, you drafted a running back. Ha, ha, ha. Look at you. Kenneth Walker is nasty. And they play the type of football that Pete was trying to play with Russ in terms of let's run the ball. Geno Smith is having such a renaissance year. Here's the question I want to ask you. This is a good one. It just came to my mind. Geno Smith has, I think it's a 9% off-target percentage. That's insane. Because it's not like he's dinking and dunking. Like, he's not just throwing it. Like, Geno's pushing the ball down the field because he has weapons. Have you ever remembered a quarterback that has been able to, at least for this small sample size, play this well, change the narrative around him? Look, with Alex Smith, I know everybody's going to just run to Alex Smith. Before we do that, Alex Smith just did what he did well better, if that makes any sense. What I mean by that is he didn't change his game, right? Like, he didn't just all of a sudden start throwing the deep ball. He had a coach who believed in him. It instilled confidence. He got stability. And then he not only went from a coach who believed in him and instilled that, he went to another coach who played to all his strengths and did everything that he could. But Geno feels different. This feels different for me because Geno Smith was largely written off. I didn't write back, whatever it is. But can you remember a quarterback who this long into their career has completely changed his narrative around him?
I was listening to someone on a podcast recently, and I think they mentioned Rich Gannon as like an example for someone who had,
that's good,
been written off and then eventually came back, obviously for the Raiders.
Won MVP.
Had that Super Bowl in like 2000, 2001, where they made the Super Bowl. So that was like the only example I could think of in our like recent memory, right? In the last like 10 years or so. Not many come to mind. And, props to Geno. I mean, for accepting the situation that he was drafted into, for being backups, and then
waiting for his time too.
Yeah,
like waiting for his time and being prepared.
Yeah, and that's kudos to Seattle. I think I hate the Rams. I do too. I hate the Rams now, or Rams fans more than I do the Seahawks. Oddly.
No. All right, Akash. I think that what 49er fans need to come to the realization is we never really hated Seattle. We hated Russ.
That is true.
Now,
I would agree. I hated
now,
Seattle too.
but right now, I don't know, man. Like
They're a feel-good story. They're a feel-good team.
Yeah, and I dislike the fact that I'm even giving them props, but
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel like the real problem was Russ, and that's the person I hated more than I did Pete at this point. And I think I hated Sherm more, because of the way he like antagonized and everything. Now, I actually give them props. Like, I have to give them props, and I think that's where like my confliction comes in. And I see, I see you, Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner didn't play in this league and then, balled out. Like, he was just somebody who, like, he came in and he balled. Like, I'm talking about guys who have been in this league for a while and all of a sudden changed into this way. But I think a lot of 49er fans' main gripe with the Seattle Seahawks is more Russell Wilson than it is necessarily the Seattle Seahawks as a franchise. Would I be wrong in saying that?
Probably. Now more so than previously, right? Just because Russell Wilson just has such a weird personality. Everyone's making fun of him. I do think it's hard to hate a team when they just consistently kicked your ass. And that was Seattle with Russ and Pete in the peak, 2010s. They would just consistently beat the 49ers. And so I would just, as a fan at that time, you would just be like, damn. You would just accept it. You'd be like, they just can't beat this team. And with the Rams, it's a little different because the Niners beat the shit out of them every time. And then, they lose, obviously, the NFC title game, which, okay. But it's a little bit of a different relationship. And then there's this, relationship between the coaches, right, with McVay and Shanahan, and they both got hired at the same time. And both teams it's intra-state, so it feels like there's a SoCal-NorCal thing. So it feels like the rivalry there is a little bit more heated. And oddly enough, with the Seahawks this year, it's hard to figure out, are they legit? Because you look at their wins, right? They beat the Lions on the road. They beat the Saints, who aren't very good. They beat the Giants, no matter what you think of them.
Revenge
game. A Chargers team, yeah. They beat a Chargers team that you're like, how good are they? And I would say their best other two wins against Arizona, right? And you're like, how good is Arizona? And then you're like, they beat Denver week 1. Well, you're like, And so you look up and down their schedule, you're like, how legit is it? And then obviously the one game against the 49ers, their offense was held scoreless, right? Mm-hmm. The only 7 points they scored were on a blocked field goal. And the Niners beat the crap out of them when Jimmy Garoppolo took over halfway through the game. And so you're like, this 49ers team actually matches up pretty well with that Seattle team. And then you're like, well, they're only a game back in the loss column. They get to play them again. The Niners are already 3-0 in the division. And so you're like, well, head to head, I guess maybe this is big picture. I'm not necessarily worried about Seattle just because they play Tampa Bay this week. They still have to play the Chiefs later in the year. They still got a couple games against the Rams. They got a couple games against the Rams. They obviously play the 49ers. So I think they've got enough losses in them. I just can't see them keeping up with this.
So the 49ers are going to win are going to win the West then.
Yeah, I'm going to write up some bold predictions for Niners Nation later this week for the second half of the season. I think the Niners should be the 2 or the 3 seed. I think the Vikings probably have the 2 seed locked away just because they're 7-1. They play in a shitty division. They're probably going to cruise to 12, 13 wins. But the Niners should win the NFC West. They're the most talented team. They have the highest ceiling. I would probably take Jimmy Garoppolo over Geno Smith in a game I have to win just because I've seen it. I've seen it, right? I've seen Jimmy Garoppolo do it in 2019, Week 17 on the road in Seattle. He played good enough for them to win, so I've seen it. So I would probably do that. And then whatever, coach, we can have an argument there.
That's what I wanted to say. I think that this is Pete Carroll's magnum opus.
I agree.
And this
coach
is
of the year.
Right. This is proof that he was never the issue. I just saw, you know what? I'm gonna let you in the chat, but now Kenneth Walker is better than Christian McCaffrey. All right, it's fine. Akash, 45 minutes in. I promised I wasn't gonna keep you for too long. I'll keep you for 5 more minutes. Guys, if you want questions that you want answered, send them in now. We're going to pull them up real quick. Thank you guys for tuning in 45 minutes in. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Make sure you follow Akash and, make sure you follow Niners Nation because we're co-workers. So, If you guys have questions that you want us to answer real quick, we'll try to rapid fire them to get them out because I have to get Akash out of here on a certain time. It's getting dark where he is at 5:45, which is
Pretty nuts.
ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, same thing's happening over here. It was like 4:45. I was like, getting a little, nappy or whatever when it really was here. But if you guys have any questions, throw them in real quick, and we'll try to pull them up. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Let's start with this one. IM says, do you see the Seahawks collapsing due to their youth and experience? Those guys are used to a now 17-game season plus playoffs.
That's a good question. I don't know if they'll collapse just because if you look at the back half of their schedule,
they've got the same schedule the Niners have, basically. They're just they've got certain games that you can look and just say, all right, that one's out.
Yep, exactly. And I think, Football Outsiders does strength of schedules, which I like. The Niners have the third easiest schedule moving forward. And I think the Seahawks have like the 6th or the 7th. So I think there's some wins in there. I think there's also some losses in there. I think it's going to be tight. I think Seattle is your classic, like 10-7 team, probably going to be a wild card team. Great
first
season.
Round exit.
Yeah, first round exit. They just had a great season. Pete Carroll probably going to be a coach of the year for what he's done with this team. They've got a ton of young talent.
Schneider GM of the year?
That was a good draft. I feel like it'd be him, maybe Brandon Beane. I don't know if he's one. I feel like that's
a very good one.
Right up there. Obviously, they signed Von Miller. Maybe they signed Odell Beckham Jr. We'll see. So he could be in the mix. But, I mean, they've just done a really good job. They're a solid operation. They clearly won the Russ trade so far. They're going to have multiple first-round picks to use this year, so good for them. But Niners are the cream of the crop of the NFC West right now. They should win this NFC West.
Absolutely. Gennaro, shout out to him, man. He's a big, longtime supporter. I appreciate him. I love him. Will the 49ers bring in Sue? I'm going to answer this real quick. I don't think this has anything to do with the 49ers not looking in Sue. What if Ndamukong Suh doesn't want to play football anymore?
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, like here's the thing. It's like certain people are like, oh, well, this guy's unsigned for a reason. Some guys are fine where they are. Some guys are fine with the money that they've made. Some guys didn't piss away all their money in, a strip club or doing whatever it is. They kept their money good. So sometimes when you're like, oh, well, this guy's unsigned, that's obvious. That doesn't mean that there's no interest. So I would question less about if the 49ers are in on Sue as if the Sue want to play. What do you think, Akash?
No, I agree, because every front office, scouting department, etc., when they've got injuries at a certain position or, their depth is lacking, right? This is what pro personnel departments do. They will check in on every possible free agent, right? They'll look at practice squads. They'll see if they can sign interior defensive linemen. They'll look at street free agents. They'll look at guys that were, previously on rosters but cut, et cetera, and they'll check in on everything.
Daniel says Sue does actually. He has stated he wants to play for a contender. Okay, thank you for the correction. Didn't know that.
True.
Yeah. So all right. I mean, I guess that answers that. But keep going, Akash. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say. So they check in on everybody, and I'm sure the Niners, if they had some legitimate interest in Ndamukong Suh for whatever reason, would have called and checked in on him. So I think we're at the point where Sue probably not coming to the 49ers just because. You think Eric Armstead's probably going to come back? Javon Kinlaw, who knows, but it will probably come back at some point. I just feel like if they were to sign him, they would have done it multiple weeks ago when they were extremely thin and not now.
Okay. Yeah. Man, that Javon Kinlaw thing really bothers me, man, because
it does.
I see the vision. I see the vision. Like if I didn't see the vision and I didn't care, drafting a punter in the 4th round, yes, I'm not ever letting that go. I wouldn't, be as sad, but I do feel the vision with Javon Kinlaw. But all right, real quick, Perk, do y'all think Jimmy can stay consistent so he can actually go on a run? Akash, I'll let you start.
I hope so. I freaking hope so. And I'm going to say the answer is yes. It feels like he's playing probably the best he's played. And I know a lot of people are going to take that and be like, well, he could have thrown more interceptions or what about these balls, whatever. But if you just look at the body of work, what's up?
Akash, I watch football. I watch every single team. If I took a shot every single time a defender dropped an interception that a quarterback threw, I would be drunk by 1:45 my time when the 1:00 games start. I just don't understand why this is such a knock on only Jimmy Garoppolo and not Tua and not Herbert and not the guys who actually throw the ball right in the pit of the stomach of guys and they just drop it. I'm sorry. I got to get that off my chest, man.
No, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, top 5 in EPA per play, success rate. I think he's 3rd or 4th in defense adjusted yards above replacement, which basically looks at the league average quarterback and what Jimmy Garoppolo does in similar situations. He's 3rd in the NFL. A lot of advanced metrics. He's just been operating the offense efficiently. He's been basically what a point guard is in basketball, right? Spreading the ball out to his playmakers, not trying to do too much. Hasn't been turning the ball over as much this season. I think he's at 11 touchdowns, 4 picks. He gets the ball out on time. I know their sack rates have dropped since he's taken over at quarterback. And then the other thing, he's pushing the ball more down the field this season. I think he's at PFF does big time throws, which is basically, it's a big time throw if you throw the ball further down the field into tight windows. 5% of his throws this season are big time throws. Last year, it was 2.2%. I think the year before that was like 2.1%. And the 5% mark that he has going right now this year is the highest of his career. So he's been playing really well. Their passing offense, ironically, has been better statistically than their rushing offense. And he's been good, man. He's been good. I don't know what it is. Maybe he's healthier this year post-shoulder surgery. Obviously, it's a contract year. He knows he's up for free agency. Whatever it is, he's been sound. And I think if he plays the way he did in that Rams game last week, Niners are going to be a very, very tough out.
Yeah. And, real quick, because I like to keep it light, PFF has big-time throws. I wish some of them would put the calculator down and acquire some big-time hoes. I'm sorry. That's like one of my favorite tweets in the world, real quick. Let me get to Jay Aguayo real quick. Kyle should hire Frank Reich as offensive assistant. Thoughts?
I mean, Frank Reich seems like a good guy. Obviously,
I think Frank is a head coach, man.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the other thing with Kyle. He typically hires guys that either he knows, has a connection with, has worked with previously, his dad has worked with, or is in the general like QB collective sphere. Like if you look at all the guys he's hired outside of Brian Griese, it feels like there's been some sort of connection. And it feels like him and Frank Reich really don't. Like Frank Reich falls more under the Andy Reid, Doug Peterson, Matt Nagy type guy. So it feels like he's headed back to like Kansas City or Philly.
Well, Nagy's over there again too, or whatever, calling plays for them as well too. Gunner asks, Rams are more annoying, but Seattle has the ugliest jerseys in the league, has ruined the Thanksgiving for me. I'll always hate those stupid seabirds. I don't disagree with this. What I will say is that wolf gray jersey that the Seahawks wear. Ugly. Really? Wow, Akash. I think it's nice. What's wrong with it?
I like when they go road whites with the navy pants. I'm not a huge fan of the all gray. It just kind of looks ugly. It looks like they forgot to wash them. But
what Andrew Pasquini continues to campaign about is if they bring back those old school Seattle Seahawks jerseys from
100%.
back in the day, that he would feel less inclined to hate on them. And I don't disagree with that. But at this point, I don't hate those wolf gray jerseys. I really don't, man. The highlighter jerseys, they irritate the shit out of me. And it's
I agree. I'm pretty sure they'll wear those Thursday night because it's a Thursday night game. I know the Niners
Thursday night, yeah. So that means Niners are gonna wear all white.
They're wearing all whites.
Yeah, they're gonna wear the all whites in Thursday Night Football. Hey, last time they did that, they stomped out on everybody's heart for once. Dean, I know why you did this. We're midway the mid-off. It's just midway through the season, mid-off. Like, Dean, I love you, buddy. I know exactly what you're trying to do here, though. Like, you're just like you're definitely trying to rob people up or whatever with this one. But this has been a great show, man, honestly. And we got one more from Jay Aguayo. If healthy, we should beat Seattle, split the cards. I don't think anybody's disputing that. What I'm trying to stomp out is that the way that the Seattle Seahawks are winning games and the way that they've built this roster should be scary for 49er fans. It really should, because we should be dancing on their grave right now. We should be laughing at them because Russell Wilson should be the better quarterback than Geno Smith. But they did such a good job in the draft that it's hard for me to sit here and look at everybody and say, well, shit, Seattle's trash. They're not. They're not, man. And I hate it. And Thursday
They're
Night
not.
Football is going to be the biggest game for the 49ers going forward. Probably will swing the division. That's the thing. It's like if you had this on your bingo card for 2022, you wouldn't have had that on it. You would not have had that on it at all. And time, if I can quote True Detective, is a flat circle. And the Seattle Seahawks continue to just be in the 49ers' way. Even when the Rams are completely eroding, even when the Cardinals are completely cooked, it turns into a two-team race again somehow. Akash, I don't know, man. Bro, you lived in Seattle. You had to deal with this shit way worse than anybody else did. I don't get it, man.
I don't either. Actually, it's funny. My old boss in Seattle texted me last night and was like, "Man, it looks like it's Seattle and San Francisco again for the NFC West." And he's a big Seahawks fan. And I was like, "Yeah, I think that too." And I think that Thursday night game is going to be huge. And funny enough, after week 2, after the Niners beat the crap out of Seattle, I was like, this Thursday night game in December is going to be nothing. The Seahawks stink. The Niners, just mark that as a W. And now you're like, well, short week. It's December. It might be raining up there. Weird crap always happens. Primetime game. It's going to be loud. And it's probably going to swing the division. Like the Niners might go 5-1 in the division. And that one
might not be enough.
That might not be enough. Exactly.
All right. We'll take the last one right here from IM. Who's the priority re-signing for the 49ers after this year? Lots of free agents, and you know how teams love to steal any of Kyle's guys for their bootleg Kyle system. That's the thing. So many people want to get rid of Kyle, but everyone's trying to be Kyle. That's the funniest shit in the world. If Kyle got fired, there's probably like 15 to 20 teams that are going to fire their coach to bring in Kyle Shanahan. So, I think this is a great question to end on. Who is the priority re-signing for the Niners? I have my answer. I know for sure who I think.
Before his injury, I would have said Emmanuel Mosley because he was playing like a high-level cornerback, second cornerback, right? If Mooney Ward's your CB1, Emmanuel Mosley probably would be one of the best CB2s. Not many teams have 2 good corners, and Mosley both sound in the pass game, sound in the run game. But he's, obviously tore his ACL. Who knows what his recovery is going to look like. He's one of those classic, comes back to the Niners on a 1-year deal. They're going to let him rehab with the team and then just see where it goes from there, like what they've done with Jason Verrett. So I probably would have said that maybe 3 weeks ago. I'd still lean Samson Ebukam, right? I feel like a lot of 49ers fans, they think
Bosa, that one just hit me out of left field, but go Akash.
They think Drake Jackson.
That's why you're smarter than me.
No. We all
stop it, Akash. Just go.
No, I mean Ebukam. I think he's 4th or 5th in ESPN's run stop win rate. He's been fantastic against the run on early downs. He's been good as a situational pass rusher. He's been healthy the last 2 seasons. He's been a starter opposite of Nick Bosa on that defensive line. He's in their 3rd down rush package. I feel like sneaky. He's a very important person to re-sign.
2 people that I have as priority re-signings. Charles Omenihu.
That's a good one.
Because I think that was an absolute steal considering what you gave up. And now you're going to have to pay because he's been consistently great. And fucking bring back Jimmy Ward. Can we stop messing around here at this point?
That's a good one.
And you know what gets me upset is that Jimmy Ward, unfortunately, is put in a spot where now other people can evaluate him and say, well, Jimmy Ward didn't look so good. He's out of position again, just because when you use him rotationally out of the free safety spot, bring him down, face other tight ends here and there, you can use that. He's not an every down slot corner. Props to Jimmy Ward for doing what's best for the team. But Jimmy Ward and Charles Omenihu need to be 2 of those guys that you need to bring on. I'm going to end here. 58 minutes in. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell for when we go live. Follow Akash on Twitter for the advanced analytics and not some stupid ass memes that what you follow me for at this point. Akash, let everybody else know what else you got going on, on the Niners Nation podcast, all that stuff.
All the good stuff, man. Niners Nation Podcast Network. Jason's got a pod. KP and I have got a pod. So follow Niners Nation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcast, NinersNation.com. We also write a bunch of stuff. We've got a great staff over there that does a ton of work. Follow me at Twitter at AKASHANAV. That's all.
Hey, Akash, I appreciate you for cutting out time for little old me. It
Hey,
means
big
a
old you
lot.
now.
No, stop it, man. Look, right now, I'm making myself little old me by like arguing with idiots. Like that's my fault, and I'm trying to do better. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and we're out of here, man. Thank you guys. Welcome everybody. Let's go Niners. My name is Jason Aponte.